as far as I know, some of those tests have been squashed. No, um, I'm not. I don't know which one. I think the CSET they canceled it. I'm not sure which one. Um,
Isn't that the harder one?
Honestly, the CBEST is super easy.
Hmm.
Um, the CSET, I think it depends on your strengths and weaknesses. I know people that did really well in certain areas and did not so great in other areas.
Sure.
The CSET, I will tell you that you can take it all in one. I mean, this all again. This is all I'm talking as an elementary teacher because um, if you're a secondary teacher, your test is completely different. It's like a subject specific test.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but if you want to be an elementary teacher, I would say the CSET, I would break it into parts. I know a lot of people that sat and did it in one chunk, and it's exhausting and it's a lot. Even I did math and science one day. I did the language arts. I don't know which one's which, but like the language arts, social studies, arts, whatever it was, in another day. And those were exhausting for me. And I'm a test taker. Like I'm good at that stuff. But like for me, it was still exhausting. I would say prepare for what you're not great at. Like I hadn't looked at elementary school science since I was in elementary school.
Yeah.
So, I needed a refresher on math. I mean, I'm good
Sure.
at math, but like I hadn't multiplied and divided fractions since I was in elementary school. So I,
Yeah.
refresh those things, get a little study guide.
There's plenty
What
of books too.
There's
Like
plenty
there's
of books.
all
It's
kinds of
really easy.
worksheets or workbooks to help you study as well. So,
The RICA, I'm not sure how the RICA works. So the RICA is an interesting one because it's a lot of case studies. It'll basically tell you a scenario about a student and basically ask you how you would like approach the situation, what strategies you'd apply, blah blah blah. Um, I think I have a lot of people that I went to Pepperdine with actually failed the RICA their first try. Um, but that was because they were in that 1 year program that required them to do their student teaching
hmm.
later. Because I had taken all of my coursework and I had already done my observations, I had actually been in a classroom and seen how these strategies work. So I would say I was pretty well prepared for the RICA and I had no problem with it. But I would say, follow blogs of like reading specialists, follow blogs of
Hmm.
like instructional coaches. Like there's a ton of really great teachers out there that share like awesome strategies that I would, if you're having to do that before your student teaching.
Yeah, there's folks on Instagram too,
Yeah,
actually.
I mean, that's usually for pretty stuff, but I follow all of these people. But yeah, there's a lot of really great bloggers out there that talk about, reading coaches and other people like that.
That's awesome. All right. My student Natalie asked, how do you handle working with kids who are too comfortable in the classroom and start disrupting the class and misbehaving?
I don't have those kids. So
Haha, you
I'm
lie.
disruptive. Um, I honestly, here's the thing, and this is why I'm a different kind of teacher, and this is why they give me the difficult kids. Those things don't bug me. Like disrupting the classroom doesn't bug me. Like it depends on what you view as disruptive, right?
Right.
That is like getting out of your seat and like when a teacher's talking, is that disruptive? Or is that just like
Some
something a kid
people,
needs to do? You know what I mean? Like, so a lot of teachers would be like, well, that's disrespectful. I'm in the middle of saying something. And I'm like, well, the kid needed to walk. Like, they needed to like go throw their trash out. Like, did it like stop you from speaking? Like, did it physically like put a barrier in front of your mouth that you can't talk if a kid's out of their seat? Like, I don't know. There's some teachers I have that are like, I wanted to curse right there, but I'm not going to. There are some teachers that are very hard headed and
yes,
are very old school and think
yes.
that like kids should only speak when spoken to, that kids need to work quietly at all times, like they're not allowed to talk to their neighbors while they're working. Like, I mean, my classroom is a different kind of place. Like, we have music on all the time. Like, my kids are dancing while they're working. Like, if they want a squishy at their desk, I don't care. Like, it doesn't bother me. I think if you let it bother you,
Hmm.
then it's gonna bother you.
Yeah.
Um, like there's it's kind of crazy. Like the other fifth grade teachers right now are going, these kids have the worst behaviors. And I'm going, like, what do you mean by worst behaviors? They're like, well, they're out of their seat and they're always talking. They're super chatty. And I'm like, but like, is a
Fifth
quiet
graders, they're supposed
is
to.
is a quiet classroom like a really like a place where learning is happening? Because like I want my kids to talk. I want my kids to be social. I want them to like share their ideas with each other because I don't think Them only responding when I'm asking them questions demonstrates their learning. When they're asking questions of their friends or me, like that self-initiated stuff, that's like way more important to me. Um, of course you're gonna have crazy kids that are like violent or that are like I don't there's like gonna be behaviors, right? But like you have to love those kids almost more than you love like a neurotypical kid.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have to like build that bond with them because when those kids respect you, not respect you as their teacher.
Right.
That's different, right? You don't want to I don't want somebody to respect me because I'm the teacher. This is not a power trip for me. Like I want you to respect me as a human being. Like I'm going to respect you as a human being. You respect me as a human being. And that's how I deal with those really difficult kids. I bond with them. I love on them. I mean, I can tell you this story and you know about the kid that I had 2 years ago that everybody said, "Oh, this kid's a mess and you're going to have a nightmare with this kid." This kid used to throw chairs at the teacher, beat up the teacher. She
Mm-hmm.
used to elope from the school every day, hop the fence, run down the street. Like it was like a thing. And the principal said, "I'm going to give you this kid." And I'm like, "Okay." She's like, I'm sorry I have to give you this kid. And I'm like, "Okay." Um, and like this kid was fine. This kid was like, she marched to the beat of her own drum. She would bring her full on like pedicure, manicure kit and be like, "I'm going to do nails today." And I'd be like, "Okay, so here's your list. If you get this done, and this done, you can have my whole back table and you can open your own nail shop." And she'd be like, "Really?"
Mm-hmm.
Like, "Yeah, you totally can." She's like, "I'm in." And I mean, I was the only teacher that ever got this kid to ever do work because I like loved on
Because you
this.
let her do her. And
I let
that's
her be who she was, you know what I mean? And I think
exactly.
that she had always had these teachers that were like on a power trip, and it was like, that's not going to work with a kid like that, you know?
Can you tell my students your viewpoint about food in your classroom? Because I love the way you put this. It's always
Hungry
amazing.
kids aren't learning.
No,
Like,
but
never.
yes, that too. But what's your
Oh,
policy about eating in the
so
classroom?
well, I can't do it now because it's like the pandemic, and
Yeah,
I
well, the
hate that I
COVID,
can't
yeah.
allow them to eat in the classroom. It drives me nuts. Like they can bring snacks, they can bring candy. I don't care as long as they're not like annoying me. Um, well, I always tell my kids that like, and the teacher next door comes in. She's like, "You're letting them eat," and I'm like, "Yeah, why not?" And she's like, "How can you let them eat?" And I'm like, "Well, when they go to college, they're going to eat in class. When they go to work, they're going to eat when they're at work at their desk. Like, if we want them to be college and career ready, which is like the whole goal of like the district, right? Like,
Hmm.
shouldn't I teach them it's okay to eat if you're hungry?" Like, I
Yep.
mean, now granted, like, let's not be like bringing pop rocks and like sticking our tongue out at our neighbor. Like, again, don't annoy me, but like, eat. Like,
Yeah,
please eat. Like, who
I
cares?
agree. I
But like
agree.
other teachers come in my classroom and they're like, they think I'm crazy.
I think it's a lot of the power struggle, with a lot of these things. Like you said, eat when you want to. It's your food, right?
I also have
Yeah.
a kid that's their age, right? So like I know that my kid's not learning when he's hungry. Like
Right.
he comes home from school and I'm like, "You have to do your homework." He's like, "But I have to eat." And I'm like, "Well, eat while you work."
Hmm.
Like it's not that hard to eat while you work.
Yeah, no, it makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, let's do like two more questions. I know I want to be mindful of your time. Let's do from my student Hee Jung. She says during the recent COVID pandemic, a lot of children have been struggling academically due to the transition. As a teacher, how did you create curriculum where the children were able to retain previously taught information as well as new material?
Um, I have always been like a little bit more innovative than other teachers. Like, I don't know. I don't want to like toot my horn, but like I like to seek things out that are interesting. That's things that are interesting for my kids that are like not necessarily cutting edge, but like that are going to keep their attention. So like a lot of those tools, those online things were already being implemented in my classroom. I was using a lot of
Right.
online programs with the kids. They were um, I like to like switch up my like the product that kids are putting out there. So we did a lot of, not just Google Slides, but like they were doing little iMovies and YouTubes and Wii movies and they would do like comic books strips or comic strip storyboards and all kinds of crazy stuff. So like for
Were you using Google Classroom even
we were
prior
already using
to?
Google Classroom. I
Yeah.
actually, the first year we were already on Google Classroom, so I kept it on Google Classroom. But then last year I switched to Schoology because they had to be on that anyway to access
Mm-hmm.
Zoom. So I did everything there. I just kind of switched it over. But um, we did like STEM challenges. They would videotape themselves and put them on uh, Flipgrid or, other platforms. It was, for my kids, it wasn't that hard of a transition. I don't feel like my kids had any learning loss, to be honest. I got through my whole curriculum. I would give my kids a lot of breaks.
Yeah.
Um, I set a schedule that gave them a lot of breaks.
Hmm.
I was online with them all day, even though the district was like, oh, you only have to be on for 3 hours. I was on all day. Um, whether it was teaching or it was just hanging out and playing games and doing
Right.
office hours or whatever it was, I'm not a bare minimum kind of teacher. So, my class, we did really well. Um, as far as the learning loss that I'm seeing now, I am having to fill a lot of gaps. I know that a lot of kids, missed half of third grade and their teachers kind of stopped teaching math or they stopped teaching science or in fourth grade. Like they may not have gotten through the math curriculum. So I'm doing a lot of like fluency reinforcement. I'll tell you, we're playing a ton of math games. Like we're doing a lot of fluency stuff with games. Like we have this thing called Gimkit. And I don't know if you probably don't know this because you don't have a kid my age, but there's a game called Among Us and the kids are obsessed with it.
Oh, I know the game though.
Okay,
My kids
so
are older
like there's
too.
this online program. It's called Gimkit. They have like a bunch of different kinds of games. There's one that's like the floor is lava. There's a
Hmm.
humans versus zombies where they're on teams, and then there's an Among Us game. Okay, these kids are obsessed with it. I can get them to do multiplication problems all day long if I put on Trust No One, which is the Gimkit version of Among Us. I mean, they
Hmm.
will play this thing all day, multiply and divide decimals. They will do exponents. They will do um, standard form, word form, expanded form. Like they will do all the math I will give them and not complain for 1 second if I put it on Gimkit.
There you
So you have
go.
to make it fun for them. You have to, you know what I mean? Like I can fill those learning gaps if I make it interesting for them. I don't have to
Absolutely.
sit there with flashcards and drill them. That's like the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Like, oh, we're gonna do intervention and we're gonna do like, how about
It's
I just do it in my
it
room?
sounds boring, right? Like
It's
school,
boring.
why is school boring? I say
It'll
this
be
all
boring.
the
It's never
time.
boring in my room. I promise you.
Yeah,
Keep it
no,
fun.
I
Keep it
don't
fun.
think we'd
Keep
be
it
bored.
light and like I so the kids will tell you my motto in my classroom is no stress because the other thing about kids not learning, hungry kids don't learn and stressed out kids don't learn. So
Yeah.
if they start to get stressed out or they get upset, it's shutdown mode, right? Like
Yeah.
it happens with my own kid, it happens with my kids in my classroom. So like I know when enough is enough and we just need to like chill and have fun
Yeah.
because I'm not getting anything else out of them that day.
And I think that that honestly needs to happen more so everywhere. It's yes, I get it. You have the sort, the core standards that you have to abide by, but at the same time, these kids need to get up and get moving,
Yeah, keep
and
it
do
fun.
something
Like I don't think
fun.
teachers realize that like you can hit all the standards and have a ton of fun. Like
Absolutely.
my kids would beg for Jeopardy. Like when we have like a math test, like can we do Jeopardy to review? Can we do Jeopardy? Like yes, yes, we can do Jeopardy. Like they're obsessed. Like if you give them a game show, these kids will do anything you ask them to.
But and I know you and I talk about this all the time. I feel like so many people think inside the box, and you and I are the exact opposite of that, where we think outside the box. The box doesn't even exist.
But
And
I was just gonna say that you took the words out of my mouth. What
but
box?
it's true.
Box does not
Exactly.
exist.
Right. And that's the thing. And that's
Every kid's
why,
different. Every class is different. So if you're thinking inside the box, you're trying to put a kid in a box. That's not going to work. That's not.
no, and a lot of people do. And it's control. That little box is control of the teacher most of the time. And it's really
When they go to
interesting.
do their student teaching, they're probably going to end up with one of those teachers. And you know what
Right?
you know what you do? Because I had one.
Hmm.
Smile and you nod and you just put in your head, someday I'm going to get my own classroom and I'm going to do this differently. And
What
that's
am
all.
I
I
not
almost
gonna
quit.
do?
I almost quit. I think you remember that. Like my mentor teacher told me I was doing everything wrong when I was making these like fun lesson plans for the kids. No, you can't do that. No, you can't be out of control. Like, okay, bye. Like, okay, I'll just do what you want me to do for now. And then when I get into my own classroom, it's going to be different.
All right, Bridget, two more questions. It's totally
But,
true though. So let's do one more. Greg asked, how many students are typically in your general education class?
um, well, the class sizes got smaller this year. So I think I had 30 the year we got sent home for the pandemic. That was 2 years ago. And then they were supposed to gradually increase or decrease every year. So I think last year I had 29 or 20, yeah, 29. This year I have 27 on my roster. Well, I was supposed to have 27. And then 3 of those kids ended up staying online with City of Angels, so I have 24. But I have to keep them. I can possibly get them back. Actually, the biggest class I ever had was 37 in fourth, but that
Wow.
was at an affiliated charter, and there are no limits.
37 kids at any age
And the
is a
fifth grade
lot.
class had 39.
Wow. That's crazy.
That's a lot
And
of kids.
I know that was a big part of the strike too. And that was, a
But
big thing
sixth
that,
grade,
right. Yeah. So,
yeah.
a lot of my students ask this of you. Many of them actually ask, what is your biggest strength and also your biggest weakness as a teacher?
I think my strength is my flexibility in that, like, I see where, like, I'm willing to switch it up, like we just talked about. Like, I'll keep it fun, I'll keep it light, but I can also keep it serious if I have to. Um, and um, weakness, work life balance.
Mm-hmm.
That's the biggest. I mean, keeping like leaving it at school. That's a big one. And like my kid sees it sometimes. Like I think like especially new teachers, I see new teachers come in all the time and they do not know how to leave it at school. I'm
Right.
getting a little better in my ninth year, but I'm not perfect. I come home sometimes and I mean on Fridays I tell my son like it's Friday, this is leave me alone day. Like let me take my nap, like leave me alone, don't talk to me. I will make you dinner and then don't talk to me for the rest of the night. But which is like kind of awful for me as a parent, right? But like that you're exhausted, like and like you go to sleep sometimes just thinking about these kids. If a kid had a bad day, and like you can't like it's hard to sleep at night if you know a kid had a bad day. Whether
It's
it's her
hard to turn it off. Yeah.
yeah, really,
Mm-hmm.
really hard to turn it off. It's one of those weird professions where you can't leave it at school, but you
Mm-hmm.
have to do your best, right? Like, I mean, Sundays for me are like devoted to planning where I really should be doing it at work and be done with it and like leave my plan book and leave my computer at work, but like I don't know how to do that. Like, so I'll get home and I'll have all these ideas and I like if I didn't have my plan book and my computer, I would like die. So, I think yeah, that work life balance for teachers is one of those really hard things.
But that's why you get so much time off that is so needed. And I think
Well,
that
I don't think people realize that though. I don't think they think like but here's the thing. In the summer, it's not like I'm sitting by the pool eating bonbons. Like I'm going to trainings. Like I'm
Mhm,
planning for the following year. I'm analyzing data that fourth grade sent me. Like
mhm.
I'm not I don't stop. I don't know. But I'm crazy, so here we are.
Yeah, but you at least get some time to
To,
breathe a little
to
bit.
spend a little time by the pool.
So, just a little time by the pool, just a little bit. So,
Yeah.
all right, Bridget. Well, thank you so much. I'm going to stop recording and we appreciate you
Thank
coming
you.
in and doing this with us. And I hope my students got some good information from you.